Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Touchline podcast with George and Brano. Here I have today is Tony, the great Tony, director and agent of P4P Sports Management. How are you today, man?
I'm very good, George. Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad everyone's good over there.
Yeah, for sure, Tony. So let me just tell you a quick story over here. So it's funny, I came across Tony through a YouTube video. So I was just searching on YouTube one day about, I guess life as an agent or being an agent. I forgot what I searched, but I came across a video of that. I think it was your cousin, you said, that put it on YouTube, correct?
Correct, yes, for his dissertation for his university degree.
Yeah, so it's funny because you told me that you didn't even know that was still up. You thought it was embarrassing.
Completely embarrassing. The deal was that it would never see the light of day, but unbeknownst to me, one day he popped it on YouTube.
No, Tony, it was actually really good. The thing I actually liked about it was how real it was, because that's kind of what drove me to go message you. I found you on LinkedIn, of course. So that's what made me go try to message you, because of the fact that it was just so real and authentic. It wasn't flashy, if that makes sense. You weren't living sort of like a glamorous life like everyone thinks an agent does. It was just sort of, you have another side job as well. So that's kind of what drove me to go message you in the first place. Yeah.
It was pretty real. That's what he wanted. So it was good.
Yeah, Tony. So you grew up in the UK, correct?
Yeah, born and raised in the UK. Born and raised.
And whereabouts in the UK? London, or where?
Yeah, no, I was born in London. I was born in North London, very, very close to Arsenal Stadium. So that's my allegiance. That's my club. As a kid, you could hear the screams from the stadium. Wow. From my house when I was a kid. So that's probably what maybe got me into football.
And do you have any great memories? What's the most, I guess, from looking back and listening to the crowds and all that? What's the best memory you have back then?
From when I was a youngster, you mean? When I was living there? Yeah, because I was young. I'm talking under 10 years old, etc., and stuff like that. When match days were around, there was parking congestion. So people used to double park their cars. Which they weren't allowed to do. So our street was always getting jammed and blocked and stuff like that. So that's one of the first experiences of a match day situation. But, as a youngster, I remember with my friends, we'd either be playing in the garden or in the street, playing football or whatever. And you could hear the goals go in. You could hear the crowd cheering for a goal way before it would be on the TV or the radio or whatever. So obviously it would drive us mad. And as a kid, you'd pretend it was you scoring the goals and stuff. So it's just, it's just something that you grow up around and with. So it was cool.
No, that's definitely awesome. I can't even imagine. So I'm actually a Manchester United fan. So I can't even imagine, growing up near Old Trafford and, hearing the crowd and all the goals going. That must have been a wonderful experience for you growing up, Tony.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a good time. Put it that way. It was a good time.
Yeah,
your ambition was always to go to the ground, to get old enough to go to the ground, or your parents or uncles or whatever to take you.
Yeah, for sure. And what's that like? Because again, the atmosphere in the US of soccer obviously is still growing over here with MLS and everything. You're seeing expansion, etc. But what's it like? What's it like? Growing up as a football fan in the UK in particular? How crazy does it get? Well,
much like the US has got its own football, baseball, whatever, and hockey. Yeah. Football for us is the be all and end all. Yeah, there's nothing else. People, there's obviously other sports, but football is the be all and end all. So growing up near the ground, the club represented your part of town, your area. Yeah, so the club was your allegiance to them. It was because they were part of your environment, part of your area, and that's how you grow up. Very few people would support a rival club. Growing up, if you lived in or around where I lived, that's the club that you supported. If you lived in or around Old Trafford, in your case, or Manchester, you'd support Manchester United or Manchester City, depending on the proximity of it. And then obviously things have changed through the course of time and through media and exposure and stuff like that. And you can be a Man United supporter sitting in New Jersey, which was obviously my time unheard of, you know. But that's how it is. You grow up in that environment. You grow up in that area. You have to be an Arsenal fan, you know, or if you're, you know, close to Chelsea, you'd have to be a Chelsea fan. So there would very rarely overlap.
I hear you.
It's brilliant. You know, it's tribal. Football is tribal.
Do you ever see it getting like that in the U.S. with regards to soccer, or you think it's just because there's so many different sports over here that it's nearly impossible for it to occur?
I think it's taken on a different concept in the States. I think one of the people that support the club, whatever club it is, you know, I don't know, New York Red Bulls, whatever, they love that club. Yeah. Because they're all franchises, New York Red Bull one day could go and play in Las Vegas.
Right.
You know, and it takes, what happens to the fans?
Yeah.
You know, so I think in effect, it loses that tribalism, you know, because I can never go and support another team. If my team left and went somewhere else, which they never would, I'd have to follow them. They're my team for, you know, they're my team for life. You know, there's a saying here: you can change your house, you can change your job, you can change your wife, you can change your religion, but you can never change your football team. You know, I don't get that same feeling from the States. I don't mean they're not passionate about their sport or the club at the time, but, you know, especially in American football, in the NFL, you know, clubs move around all the time. And then, you know, one day you could be supporting, I don't know, the LA Raiders, and the next day they're the Las Vegas Raiders or whatever. It doesn't work. You know, it doesn't work here.
No, I hear you.
I'll give you a case in point. The only time that something like that's ever happened is when Wimbledon FC were going through financial difficulties. Wimbledon is London club. They were in the Premiership at one point. I think they were in the Premiership first division when this happened. They were going through a financial crisis, and somehow, some way, the new owners managed to move the club from Wimbledon, which is in South London, up to the Midlands, in the middle of the country, in a place called Milton Keynes, and rechanged the name to Milton Keynes Dons. That's the only time it's happened here. But the fans didn't move with them. The fans didn't want to lose the identity they had, their tribal feelings they had for their club. So they formed their own club, and they called it AFC Wimbledon. And over a period of whatever it is, 10, 15 years, they've actually managed to get it back into the professional league structure. Wow. And I think to date they're in League One, which is the third tier of professional football. So that's what it means to people. You know, you take my club away, it doesn't happen. So they went and formed their own club and started from the ground up, grassroots, playing in a local park, and slowly over 4, 5, 10 years, whatever it is, brought it back.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I completely agree with you there. I think that's definitely missing here in the U.S. in terms of that, because, again, like you said, you need that tribalism, and you don't have that here. We're really missing that. Do you think that has something to do with, you know, promotion, relegation kind of, or do you think that's sort of a separate topic?
No, that has a lot to do with it, because, I mean, obviously you guys don't have that over there. We have promotion and relegation, and you're belonging to that football club. You want the best for it. Yeah. Not everyone's going to win a title. Not everyone's going to win a trophy. You know, there's only 4 trophies to play for, essentially. Yeah. You know, and there's 4 promotions and relegations to go for. So that feeds into it. So they represent you, and they represent your area. Whether you support Arsenal or Manchester United, or you support Torquay United in whatever division they're in now, it's yours. It's your club. You want them to go up. You want them to go as far as they can. So yeah, that does sort of, you know, it feeds into it. Promotion, I think, and relegation is a big thing. No one wants to get relegated. You know, and it hurts. You know, I'm lucky enough to support. I'm lucky enough to support a major club. You know, one of the biggest clubs in the world. Not everyone does, and people have to suffer relegation. and it hurts. The whole town or the whole area suffers because of it. Fortunately for you guys, it doesn't work like that. And I think it takes a little bit of the passion away from the game. Because every game means something.
No, I completely agree with you, Tony. I think that's something that definitely maybe won't ever happen over here, because I guess all these new clubs that you're seeing coming to rise here in MLS, they're building these big stadiums. So for them to, eventually get relegated, I don't think, they don't even sell out, I don't think, as on the MLS side as it is. So what's going to make them sell out, if they go down to the USL Championship, which is the second tier here, or even the USL 1, which is the third tier. So that's definitely the concern from their perspective. But I think overall, to grow the game here, you need that tribalism. You need promotion, relegation to get the fans going. Imagine a team starting from the fourth tier, working all the way up to the first tier. That's definitely an amazing story, and we'll be that passionate fan over here.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. I think you need that personally.
Yeah, and then it's funny because you mentioned the cups, right? So you guys have over there, I think I read something they were trying to take away either the Carabao Cup, I think it was, or the FA Cup. What's the difference between those two? I always get those a little confused.
Okay, so the FA Cup is the oldest football cup in the world. Yeah, it was the first one. So everyone is familiar with what a cup competition is. It's a knockout. So the FA Cup is for the whole of the Football Federation. Yeah. So FA stands for obviously the Football Association, and in this case, for England. So everyone that is affiliated to the Football Association is able to participate in the FA Cup. So it's a big it used to be way more prestigious. Things have changed, but it is a big prestigious competition because everyone plays for it. You can play from it from grassroots level. To give you an understanding, the final is held in May. Traditionally, it's held in May every year. And this competition starts right down from grassroots level. So we're talking, obviously the top 4 divisions, we're talking 15 divisions down. Any local can get in there. So it feeds its way up to obviously, to the major teams playing. So towards the latter stages of the competition, everyone's involved, and then the professional clubs come in, and then the bottom 2 professional leagues join, and then I think in round 3 the top 2 join. I think I might have got that wrong a little bit, but anyway, you get the message. So that's a big prestigious competition. So that's the FA Cup. The Carabao Cup, and it's open to everyone. The Carabao Cup, which is officially the League Cup, is just for league teams. So in other words, the teams in the top 4 divisions. And again, that's filtered that the 2 bottom leagues start off first, and then it filters up, and then the 2 bigger leagues join. But it's essentially just for the league, just the league professional teams. So I think there's 92 league teams. So they're the only ones that are entitled to play in that competition. And it's a recent invention. It's sort of early 60s that this cup competition began, whereas the FA Cup actually predates the league. The formation of the Football League. It started off in the 1800s. It was originally played by the people who basically invented football. So that's why it's the most prestigious competition. So there is a differing ethos in it, but listen, you want to win it. So the strata goes. You want to win your league, so the Premiership, the FA Cup, League Cup, and then whatever else there is.
So the FA Cup does, I guess, supersede the Carabao Cup right now, right? Do you think that it's smart for them to try and take away the Carabao Cup? I guess the complaint is that is the schedule, right? There's so many games. You have it, especially with COVID now. All the games are packed. I don't even think they're doing league cups right now, but league games rather. But I guess that's the incentive, right, to make the schedule, I guess, a little less hectic. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. There was talk of the Carabao being dropped this year, but obviously finance and money and sponsors and stuff like that have a big part in that. So they shoehorned it in. and they shoehorned it in with obviously all the other competitions. Right now, it's because, listen, no one, if you get knocked out of the Carabao Cup, especially as a big club, you don't really care. Yeah, you don't really care because it hasn't got that meaning. But when you get into the latter stages of the competition, especially, let's say the semi-final, you want to win it. It suddenly becomes important because it's a trophy. You want to win it. But before that, most of the big clubs are now obviously the first division. The championship, which is our first division. They put a lot of the kids in, a lot of the junior players in, a lot of the reserve team players in, just to give them game time. So they don't take it that seriously. But as I said, soon as it becomes real and we've got a chance to win this, then the major clubs want to win it. But for me, it's a trophy. If it's there, you have to. Yeah, and essentially once you get into the latter stages of the competition, everyone wants to win it. But the bigger clubs have devalued it by playing their B teams, and in some cases their youth teams in the earlier rounds. So it's devalued it.
No, for sure.
Until it gets to a point where you want to win it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that's definitely, again, cup is a cup at the end of the day, and like you said, money talks. So I don't see any of these cups being dropped anytime soon. And I kind of want to switch a little, a little bit of topic over here.
Yeah.
So again, so you said part of the reason why you became an agent was, you growing up right next to, watching Arsenal playing, hearing the fans. So what was your experience like when you first started out? And just tell me a little more about that.
It was pretty tough. It's a tough profession. There's a lot of things that go on. There's a lot of sharks, but it was never something. It was actually never something I thought I could get into, and I never really gave it a lot of thought. I sort of fell into it. Really, I've always played football from a kid, growing up, etc. As an adult, played good level football, etc. When I got a little bit too old, I started managing my or coaching, as you guys say, my son's team, and I just, my life path went somewhere else. Then all of a sudden, life has a way of, changing your direction. I just suddenly got involved in it through just pure chance. And I thought, wow, this is, football. I love football. It's something that interests me or whatever. Suddenly got involved, and it's, it's not easy. It's hard. People think it's easy. People think you just sit there, you answer a phone call, you go and talk to someone, you get a player, and you just end up having money. It's not. Most agents don't make a living. It's only the top echelon. Like most things, it's the 1%ers that make all the money. Yeah. The rest of us have to earn our crust, and it's hard work. So there's been a lot of pitfalls. There's been a lot of false dawns. There's been a lot of sharks eating around me. But as I said, it was just something that I fell into.
No, yeah, and I kind of hear that story a lot. Again, and talking to people, this past year. So I actually started out this year as well. And it's kind of like you, right? Like kind of just been falling into it and trying to learn about the industry and stuff. That's why we're talking to as well. Just been connecting with a lot of people. And it's the same thing. People have this misconception that you're going to make money right away. You're going to be rich like that top 1%. But the reality is that, like you said, you're likely not going to make a living from it. You're doing it because you're sort of passionate for it and you want to stay in the sport, not because of the money, because that's likely not to happen. Not saying it won't happen, but that's likely not the case for many.
Yeah. And especially now that they've, the last, 3-4 years, they've relaxed the entry structure to become an agent, or now they call us football intermediaries. Yeah. So they've relaxed that, and literally anyone can become an intermediary now. And it's a free for all. And, as I said, everyone thinks it's a gravy boat here or a gravy train. It's not. It's hard work. And people, soon realize that, because, right now to become an agent, you've literally got to fill in a form, send in your fee, whatever it is. And that's it. Essentially, that's it. When I did it, I had to sit an exam. I had to study. I had to learn all the laws. I had to learn, the laws of FIFA, the laws of the FA, etc., etc. Took my test, passed my test, paid my insurance, paid my whatever, and worked. Right now, just pick up the phone, fill in a form, bang, you're done. You're an agent. it shouldn't be. Well, first of all, it shouldn't be that easy, and B, but it gives a false impression because there's thousands of agents out there at the moment, and they think I just get a player and I've made it. It doesn't work like that. You're not going to pick up. If you're lucky, you'll pick up a Messi. But it's not. You're not going to pick up a Messi. There's only one Messi.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. There's money to be made in here. There's money to be made in football, but it's a hard slog. It's work like anything else.
Yeah, for sure, exactly. And I think, especially agents like me starting out have to realize that sooner rather than later, that it's not as easy as people make it out to be. And that again, you have to put in the work, and you actually have to love doing it and have a good intentions behind wanting to be in the industry in the first place, rather than chase the money. Because that's definitely, again, if you don't land on a Messi in the beginning, what's the likelihood of that, right? So again, very, very important there. Very important point. And so do you have any maybe transfer stories, I guess you can share? Maybe not get into specifics, but maybe any a very bad instance you had, maybe perhaps you had someone that you thought was going to get, the club was willing and they told you, oh, we want this player. And then all of a sudden at the last second, they changed their plans. Have you had anything like that happen?
There's, listen, never trust the club. Yeah. Never trust the club. There's many stories where, clubs have said to you, I want this player, I'm going to take this player. Last minute, sorry, we've gone another way. You have to understand, clubs have a list of who they want. They have a top target, and then target 2, target 3, target 4, whatever. So if they don't get their top target, then the rest come into play. But if you're a clever club, you're juggling, you're balancing all the balls. You're not just going for one player, you're going for 5 players, so you're going for your top target. If he doesn't come, you're still in the running for number 1. So we've had a lot of instances where, we might not have been the top target for clubs, and you think, okay, we're all done, sealed, delivered, just waiting. And then, you get the inevitable call. Sorry, we've gone another way. But listen, I've been lucky. I'm not a big agent by any means. I don't have many players, and that's partly out of design, because you can only look after a certain number of players properly. We haven't had that a lot. Most of the deals that we've done, the club, I know the club wants the player, and it gets smoothed over. It's nice and easy. There's deals can be done very easy if everyone is on board. Deals can be done very easily and very quickly, and that's what we like to do. That's what I like to do. I moved a quick case in point. I moved a player over from Holland to the UK, to a Premiership club in the UK. We literally did it in under a week, and we did everything over email. Boom, 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 boom. Because I knew they wanted him. We were happy to come. We sorted out backwards and forwards a couple of times the contracts or whatever, and it was done, nice and easy. And that's how it should be. They were happy, we were happy, But that's not to say we haven't been turned over by either a club or another agent or even a player. It happens all the time, and it's not nice. It hurts.
No, for sure, especially when you're about to get your payday. Not even that, just making that transfer happen, and then all of a sudden just get pulled for you. It must definitely suck. And then, so what advice would you have to young agents out there, right? What do you think is the most important thing when starting out?
Be truthful, be honest, don't overpromise. That's this may sound bitter, but a lot of agents out there overpromise. Yeah, they'll approach a player. I can get you. I've seen you. You're a really good player. Blah 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 blah. I'm going to get you to, I don't know, Arsenal, Man United, this, that, and the other, and it doesn't happen. You have to understand. You have to understand your player. Yeah, you have to see the level that. Listen, we all want the player to go as high as possible, but you have to understand his level. So don't overpromise. That's probably the best bit of information I can give anyone, or advice rather, is don't overpromise. Only promise what you can deliver. Be open and honest to your client, and treat the players as your client. They're not yours. They're not your property. You know, I hear a lot of people say, and I say, I fall into this. I say, oh, my players, you know, I get my players, they're not my players. I work for them. You know, that, and I believe that's how it should be. You're effectively an employee, because I'm here to represent and get the best interest for my client, you know, not my player. And if I believe if you have that attitude with it, you know, everything will be fine. But there's too many that look at the other way. It's what I can get out of the player. It's not, you know, you only, and for me, an agent only succeeds if your player succeeds.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I believe it. And you know, and if we're being brutally honest and brutally frank, yes, we provide a service. Of course we do. You know, and that's what you get paid for. You're there to provide a service for your client. You know, and if you don't provide that service, then you're not. You know, you're doing everyone an injustice. You know, you work for the client. You work for the player. That's basically the advice that I can give.
No, I completely agree there again, Tony, with you. Like that, again, me just starting out, I'm always brutally honest with people too. Like, hey, I'm just getting started out. You know, I'm not going to tell you I can do this and this for you, but this is what I can provide. This is the contacts I have right now. I'm still growing. Always honest with players, because I believe in that as well. I'm not trying. I just like look at it from their perspective. Like, if I were a player, do I want to be scammed or overpromised or anything like that? I don't. So it's just the basic principle of, you know, treating people how you want to be treated, as cheesy as that may sound, but that's simply the case with this situation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and another thing I say to players, that especially we're negotiating with, is it's all about you. It's all about the player. You know, doesn't matter. I could be the worst agent in the world, but if you're the best player in the world, every door will open, and I will look like a great agent. You know, I'm not opening the doors. You're opening the doors, and a player will always open the doors. You know, yes, of course, I can do my bit. I can speak to clubs, make them aware of this player. But if your player is no good, it doesn't matter who I am. You know, it doesn't matter if I'm the greatest agent in the world, you know, George Mendes or you know, whoever. They're not going to take the player if he's no good. But if the player is good, then everyone will take your call. You know, absolutely everyone will take your call. So it's always about the player. Player is the kingpin. And, you know, if you don't understand that, then for me, you're not a good agent.
No, that's, again, exactly right there. The player is the kingpin. That's a great way of putting it, because, again, without the player, there's nothing. Like you said, of course, we help out in some certain ways, but again, the player is definitely the person who opens the door at the end of the day. So I also saw in that video too that you worked with some youth players as well. Just tell me about the process of working with those young players and those early stages, you know, building those relationships from the beginning.
Well, it's exactly what you've just said. It's about building a relationship. And because, you know, at the time that you're talking about in the video, we were quite new to the industry. So it's difficult to attract, and we're not, as I said, we're not a big agency. I'm not a big agent, whatever. It's quite difficult to attract established players, you know, into your company. So you have to go the youth way. So however they come around, whether it's by recommendation or by you scouting or whatever, you build a relationship with the player, and you foster an understanding between you that we're in it for the long haul. You know, so that for me, that's how we grow. That's how I grow. That's, you know, as a business, I get most of my players from recommendation. I don't have many, but it's all by recommendation. So someone will recommend me to go and see this boy or the family or whatever. So it's fostering that relationship with the player and with the family, especially if they're younger, if they're like 16, 17 or whatever. You know, they have to believe in you, as well as you believing in the player that he's gonna, you know, he's got a career in front of him. They have to believe in you that you can deliver for their child. Essentially, you know, when you're 16, 17, whatever, you're still a child. You're still someone's child. So it's about building that framework of support and understanding and a relationship with the whole family. You know, and hopefully, if things go to plan and the player progresses, you will grow together. And that, you know, that's how we've approached it, especially in the last couple of years. is to find good, talented, hardworking players. And hopefully they stick around with us because, as you know, our contracts are only valid for 2 years.
Yeah.
So you could put all the groundwork in and then boom, some massive agency or whatever will come down and swoop and put them in their warehouse, because that's what big agencies do. They just warehouse players.
No, that's exactly right. I've heard a lot of stories about that, definitely. And maybe players are starting to realize that a little more now, because I've heard players telling me, hey, yeah, I'm part of a big agency, but they're not treated right or they don't pay attention to me. And of course, there's pros and cons to that. But like you said, essentially it is just a warehouse full of players, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. I mean, I look at some of the big agencies and they've got, some of them have got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of players. Okay, they've got a lot of agents that look after these players, but most of the agents are working with, 10, 15, 20 players. How does that work? How do you look after someone? You haven't got enough hours in the day, so someone's going to slip through the gaps. I mean, I've heard plenty of stories, probably much like you have, where the player doesn't see the agent until it comes down to when his contract's being renewed, and then suddenly they materialise, because that's where the money is. Whereas someone like me, and hopefully someone like you, you're with your client 24 hours a day. Maybe not physically, but on the phone or this or that, or speaking to them, but keeping in contact. So as I said, that we haven't grown to an exponential state because we don't want to. I can only look after really 4 or 5 players, maybe 6 max, and give them quality. I don't. As I said, I'm not a warehouse. I'm a bespoke agency. I like that. I'm a bespoke agency.
Has a nice ring to it, right, Tony?
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with you. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Then, like, I don't want to have like 100 clients, or players, whatever. I just want to have a few, that can actually look after, and then, it goes from there. I think that's the right way to do it. But again, that's where I guess these players are starting to realize now that maybe being with a big agency isn't always the best route for them to take, because it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to advance their career. Because again, like you said in the earlier point, it comes down to the player's quality at the end of the day. It doesn't matter who the agent is, the best agent, the worst agent. It comes down to the player at the end of the day.
100%, 100%. If the player's no good, you're not going anywhere. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah, and staying on that topic with young players and academy players, I'm sure you heard that story. I believe it was Jeremy Winston from the Man City Academy. He was released, and then a few days later, I'm not sure the complete story, he took his own life. That was a pretty sad story to hear. Do you think that this will not open the eyes, maybe like open the eyes to those clubs, maybe take a different approach, maybe more psychological classes, things like that?
I would like to think so. I mean, it's a tragic story. It's horrible. It really, really is horrible. But unfortunately, I'm going to be pretty critical of clubs, but also, to tell you how it is. A lot of clubs do have psychologists or, whatever, looking after the players. And it depends on the stature of the club. So the bigger the club, the more money they've got to spend on psychologists and media analysts, whatever, all this stuff. So the players are looked after, but the environment a young player is in is completely cutthroat. And the majority of clubs, whether by design or accident, are completely cutthroat. If a player's come through the academy, let's say from 11 until 16, and is either released at 16, that's all the player knows. Doesn't know anything else. He's always been led to believe that I'm going to become a professional footballer. I'm going to become a professional footballer. Very few clubs protect a child in that instance, because not everyone's going to make it. Not, there's whatever, how many in a squad, let's say 20 in a squad, you'd be lucky if 1 or 2 make it. Yeah. So what happens to the rest? There is no duty of care to, I believe, to the ones that have been jettisoned and thrown away. And then that gets it becomes tenfold when you become a scholar. You know, between 16 and 18 in England, you're termed a scholar. So it's like a part-time professional. You're supposed to get some sort of education, but also football. And that's when you really start to open your eyes as a young player and think, right, I can make this, I can make this. You're literally at the last hurdle. And then when that gets taken away from you, your whole, your players just go into a free fall. You know, some players, if they're not mentally stable or they haven't got the environment around them, or be it family or at the club, they go into a spiral. You know, you see a lot of players that are really good in 16 to 18 in an academy and playing at major clubs that drift out of the game. They should have a career somewhere. They should be going into smaller clubs, but they drift out of the game because they can't get their head round where they were to where they are now. You know, and it's a shame. I mean, I've had players that have been released, and clubs say, "We'll do everything we can to find them another club," and they do nothing. Yeah. They virtually do nothing. You know, it's left if they're lucky enough to have an agent, it's left to an agent to try and find whatever, a trial or an opportunity or whatever. That doesn't always work, and the club just literally washes their hands of them. They've had them since they were kids. They're now more or less adult, not quite adolescent, let's say, and they just wash their hands of them, and it's terrible. It happens every day, and it shouldn't. You know, I don't want to sound too down on them. A lot of clubs do provide some sort of care, aftercare, but the majority, from my experience, is once a player's gone. They don't care. Done. See ya. Next one. It's like a factory, and it shouldn't be.
Do you think there's a solution to that, though? Because, again, from the club's perspective, it is a business, right? Like, we always hear that at the end of the day, it is a business. So that is the sort of their process, right? They go through a bunch of players and try to pick out the best. Do you think there's a solution to that? Because, like you said, and then, like, kind of going back to the topic what we were talking about before, is the fact that could be a positive to having an agent as well, developing those relationships, in the beginning, and then, you're guiding a player, and if something like that happens, the player at least has someone to go to that can sort of, if it's a good agent, of course, that can sort of get them through those tough times. But, like, going back to my question, do you think there is an actual solution to that sort of problem?
I wouldn't say a solution, but I think an idea could be the clubs could be more involved in the players' well-being. And what I mean by that is the players are there for one thing, to become professional footballers. That's it. They're not going to make it. A tiny percentage will make it. I think the statistic is less than 2% or less than 1% have come from an academy into the under-23 system. So, it's a tiny, tiny proportion from thousands of kids. So there should be more duty of care. You want to be a professional, that's the goal. But what if you don't become a professional? Okay, how is your schooling? So are they doing enough for kids to have a secondary career? They're not all going to make it, as we said. Is their schooling up to scratch? Can they maybe get a university degree or an apprenticeship in some other profession? I don't think they're doing enough in that line. Yeah, they're, as I said, 16 to 18, they're providing some sort of education, but really it's just ticking a box. They'll send the kids off a couple of hours a day or whatever to do a meaningless, test or an exam or whatever. Most of the kids don't want to be there. There's no, and the clubs have to literally, they have to send them, they have to attend, they have to do it, they have to hit a criteria, they have to do this, but there's no structure to it. It's just because the club is ticking a box. Okay, we've done our job, but there should be more care in there. Okay, they should look at the individual more. This guy could if he doesn't make it as a professional, could become I don't know, whatever, a pilot, let's say. Let's help him. Let's help him try and not to achieve that, but put him on that path. His education or a secondary career has to be as paramount as becoming a professional footballer. The kids, that's wrong. The people that I work with, we always insist, or I always insist, football is obviously your number one priority, but it should be tied in with school. So if you slack at school, you're not going to become a professional footballer. So the parents are involved as well. Education is for me just as important as doing well at playing football. And that's how it should be for the, not that I have the answer, but that's how it should be, for clubs. There should be some sort of system in place where it's not just all about football. And I know that's all they're concerned about, but you have to, there's obviously cases in point that we just mentioned. You can't have kids taking their own lives. You can't have, many kids, apart from taking their own lives, they spiral into depression and whatever, drugs and drinking and all this type of things, because they just can't take the rejection. There's no safety net, and there should be a safety net.
Completely agree. And it is horrible what's happening. I know, like, I'm sure there's been more cases. I'm sure that one blew up because of the fact that it was at a global club like Manchester City. But again, I completely agree with you, Tony. Something has to be done about this. And I hope these clubs will now start, rather start taking better action and a better approach to this. Because like you said, again, even with players in general, you're not guaranteed to have a long career, right? It could be taken at any moment. So getting the education is a big part. You even see it with players that are established, they go out and still get the degrees and stuff like that. Because even for them that they're making a lot of money, they know that this could all be over in the next week or so. So it's very important to get your education.
Yeah, 100%. It could, it could end. One bad tackle could end a career. God forbid, at 20 or at 28 or at 19, whatever. Then what do you do? Not everyone's going to be on 200,000-300,000 a week. There's players on that are a couple of hundred. There's players with normal mortgages that need to be paid, and their careers are ended at whatever it is, 2021. What happens to them? What's their fallback? Of course, there's the PFA, which is the Professional Footballers Association, but it's a trade union, it's a trade body, and they try and provide a safety net, but clubs don't provide a safety net I don't believe for any of their players. Most clubs take out, obviously have their players insured. So if his career is ended whilst he's in their employ, they get paid out. Player doesn't get that. They pay that insurance for themselves. They should be mandatory. They should be paying it for the players as well. We try and negotiate that into any contract. Most clubs won't do that unless you're obviously a world superstar or whatever. So the player has to pay that himself. It should be, for me, it should be mandatory. So if the club has an insurance policy in place for his assets, because that's what they are, players are assets to clubs, and his career is ended, then they should be paying that for the player as well, because he's done it on your working for you, But God forbid the worst happens. I don't know what clubs do for players, and not all are the same. I know we're talking dark, and it's a horrible subject, we're just generalising. Not all clubs are the same, but that's what's coming out of football. Football's a business.
Yeah, for sure. Again, it needs to be. Again, it is a business, but there needs to be change, like we both talked about. I think we both can agree on that. So moving on from this, Tony, what's next for you and and your agency? What do you have coming up? Anything interesting? Do you have any specific goals in mind for your agency?
Well, we've got a couple of good younger players. When I say younger, they're like 19, 20 or whatever. And we're hoping and praying they're on the cusp of breaking into their respective first teams. We're really proud of them. We want them to do well, for themselves and for their family foremost. And we're expecting, good things from all of them. There's a few others bubbling underneath, a couple of younger players. And listen, football is just hope. It's eternal hope. So for us, what's our plan? Is to encourage and to protect and to provide a platform for our players to do well. And that's all we can really hope for, because like I said right at the beginning, if they do well, we do well, and that's the be all and end all of it.
Yeah, and then how do you handle that though when a player, let's say, might not make it? Have you had those instances in those talks? How do you approach that? Because again, like we going back to before, it must be very difficult.
Yeah, yeah. It is very difficult, and it's a big culture shock. You know, we've had players come out of Premier academies, you know, Premier League academies that can't find another club. You know, so it's how you rebuild that player. You know, they might have to start, and this is where the culture shock is. They might have to start way down in the non-leagues. You know what the non-leagues are?
Yeah.
Familiar with that?
You don't get paid for those leagues, right?
Amateurs. Let's say amateurs. Yeah, exactly that. You know, so they may have to go all the way back there. And it's a massive culture shock. You know, so it's finding a path back up.
Yeah.
I've got you, but I thought I lost you from it. Yeah. So, you know, we've had that for a couple of players, and it's trying to rebuild their careers, because listen, it's never over until you say it's over. You know, so you might have to start down in the 7th, 8th, 9th division, but with hard work, determination, and hard work is the key. And I say that to everyone. You know, players have talent. Yeah, players have talent. You might not fit that right club. Yeah, you might not fit it, and you might fit somewhere else, and it could be, as I said, 9 divisions below, but you want to be up here. So yeah, you work hard, you get back up, and that's what we tell our players. You know, we've had it a couple of times, and we try and find options for them where they can play. They might not like it, and you know, a lot of players don't like it, and a lot of players reject that. And the ones that reject it, they just fall by the wayside. You know, because first of all, in life, no one owes you anything in life. Yeah, and if you know, no one owes you a living, so you have to earn that. You know, and if you're not prepared to put the hard work in, doesn't matter where you were. Yeah, you got to put the hard work in. So you got to start somewhere. You have a step somewhere. You know, and you make that next step, and so on and so on and so on. So I always tell the boys, it's never where you start; it's where you finish.
That's well said. I couldn't say that. Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better, Tony. I do have one more question for you, though. It's a little off topic. That I think it might become a trend in the show. What's the most embarrassing song you have on your playlist?
Okay, so it is way off topic, but you assume that I have a playlist.
Well, or rather, a most embarrassing favorite song. Or I'm sure you listen to music at some point, right?
Listen, if I'm honest, I'm not really into music. I do have a playlist, but it's probably, I don't know, "Come Fly With Me." I can't remember who sings it. I just love that song.
Okay. I mean, I have
Dean Martin. Come.
Who do you know? You know who it's by or no?
I think it's Dean Martin, the one I like. "Come fly with me, come fly."
Hey, there you go, right? There you go, Tony. Well, Tony, again, it was a pleasure to have you on, man. I really appreciate it. You seem like a great person.
Thanks, George.
Great work with your agency. And I don't know, do you have any final thoughts you would like to share or anything?
That's a loaded question. Listen, first of all, thanks, George, for reaching out. And thanks for this podcast. I've literally had a blast. It's been horrible during this lockdown and all the rest of it to connect with people. So I thank you for that. It's been really nice. But listen, final thoughts. What final thoughts are there in a COVID inspired world? You know, it's just basically stay safe, keep your family close, protect each other. That's all anyone can do. The rest will take care of itself.
For sure, Tony. I completely agree with you. Again, Tony, pleasure having you on. Stay safe to you, and then we'll keep in touch and we'll talk soon, all right?
Excellent.